Good morning, good morning, good morning. So I came live a split second ago and I had to start the video again because my energy was just not on point. And so bear with me this morning as I try to do this live video. So I came live a few minutes ago, well, maybe 30 minutes ago. And then for whatever reason, I had issues with my lighting. And so I said, okay, let me start over. And when I went back on Facebook to go back on the Hope Hub, on my news feed, I saw a post relaying the information that relaying the information that yes, okay, saying that a good friend of mine here on social media had passed away yesterday, August 1st. I knew she was very sick. She's been battling cancer, actually stage 4 cancer. I met her probably, I would say, at the beginning of the year in January, or I think maybe the end of January, because I did a 30-day fast in January, and then I started the Hope Hub up again after a hiatus. And when I started the Hope Hub again, I knew that I had been asked by God to do this Beacon of Hope show on Facebook. And it was something that I was really nervous about in terms of not just the interview process, but okay, this video, maybe if I walk I'll talk better. So I knew that God had told me during my fast to come back and do the Beacon of Hope show. And the reason I had not been wanting to do it was because of, first of all, fear. You know how when you're starting something and you think, what if I start and I fail? What if I ask people to come on as guests and they say, oh God, and they refuse, or they say no? And you know, so that was the main reason that I was afraid to do the Beacon of Hope show. And then when I first started, and I remember talking to Erica, my admin, I told her, you know, the flyer on the page was like, welcome back to the Hope Hub, because I had taken 30 days hiatus. And then I had put in a little bit of a small font, home to the Beacon of Hope show. And then it was like really small font, so nobody really could really see it, but I knew it was there. And in my mind, I was like, if someone is very observing, they'll probably be like, where is this Beacon of Hope show she's talking about? And so I was just sitting on it, and I was like, oh Lord, I need to ask certain people that God had placed in my heart to do this show with, or have them tell their story, or people who I saw as lights in the world, and give them the platform where they can talk about their lives and talk about their story and what you know, hope they've gleaned and life experiences they've learned, and how those little nuggets and tips and strategies could help someone out. So yes, let me tell you, and this is for someone, everyone who's started something, a business, a platform, anything new that stretches you outside of your comfort zone, is not doing it without some fear or trepidation. I have to run across the street, sorry. So is not doing it without some fear and trepidation. And so it was the same for me. It was this one thing that I knew God had told me to do, and I knew I needed to do it, but I was holding on, and I was holding on to it. So finally, because God would not give me peace about this Beacon of Hope show and this idea that that's what I needed to do. And I remember talking to Erica, and Erica telling me, okay, let's talk about what it is that you're doing and what it is you think you're being called to do. And so I sat there and I did like a mini presentation for her. And I told her, this is what my comfort zone is I can post all day beautiful pictures and quotes. That's a comfort zone. I can even do live videos like I'm doing right now, which was not a comfort zone when I started doing it, but I can do it. I can press that live video and talk and give my hope strategy to people every single day. But I know that God is calling me to do more. I know that this platform is just not for me. It's for other people to have a vehicle that they can tell their story, right? And so, that being said, it's a really hot day. So, don't mind me squinting. So that being said, I just said, look, I'm going to put it out to the universe. And whoever contacts me. So I have a point. So I put it out there and I said, you know, I'm starting this Beacon of Hope show. Whoever is interested in sharing their story, contact me, inbox me. I didn't even know how I was going to do it, if Facebook Live would work, the whole dual screen and everything. The first person that reached out to me was this woman, Rashonda Jenkins. Whew, I'm getting emotional. And so we chatted back and forth. Good morning, whoever logged in. So Rashonda reached out to me and she told me, I'm interested in being on your platform and telling my story. So I was like, wow, like someone actually inboxed me and wants to do this. And so we chatted back and forth. And then in looking at her platform or her Facebook page, I saw that she was struggling with stage 4 cancer. Hi, Leah and Naimodu. I knew she had cancer, but I didn't know what stage it was in. And on her Facebook page, she had between different treatments and chemo and all of that, she would take speaking engagements and speak about her story and how much hope she has that God will heal her and what she's been through, the different types of sicknesses, and how, you know, it's probably metamorphosized or even gotten worse, but she still continues to hope. And so when we would chat on Messenger, you know, she would tell me her fear around speaking, but just knowing that God wanted her to encourage people and give people hope, even though her circumstances did not really evidence that hope. So we tried to schedule a conversation on the Hope Hub. I call them conversations. I don't call them interviews because I think it's a conversation on hope. I don't want to intimidate anyone that I'm an interviewer or whatever, or show. It's just a conversation on hope. So we tried to schedule it on and off, but then she kept going into all these treatments. And every time we would want to do it, she would be back in the hospital. So this morning, right before I did this Hope Hub video, I was like, oh my God, like when I saw her family post on her Facebook profile that she had gone to be with the Lord, that she had passed on yesterday, it completely just took me out. And I think it's interesting that I was just outside that church, Galilee, and I was going in to thank God for answered prayer versus 2 days ago when I was there crying out for him to remember me. This time around I went back and I was thanking him for answering my prayers. So anyway, I just want to say Rashonda Jenkins was a beacon of hope. You know, I have a regret in my heart that
that I never scheduled this conversation with her. Hi, Bev. Hi, Bev. Beverly, what are you doing up so early? It's an emotional morning for me because I just found out that someone that I had known through Facebook, that I had chatted on and off with, passed away yesterday. And she had asked to be on my show, Beacon of Hope, here on the Hope Hub. And we were trying to schedule it for months. And so in my mind, I'm like, man, I wish I had done more to make it happen. But I guess God had a reason for me to run into her on these Facebook streets. I'm sorry for the noise. And she was a beacon of hope. You know, she was going through a very aggressive cancer. At the end of her life, she was still coming live and talking to us about her treatments and all that she was going through. And one of the things that she would do all the time is she would post transparency updates. She called them transparency updates, where she would say, this is where I am with my treatment. This is what I'm feeling during this treatment, both physically and psychologically. And she would post those updates. And she was a hairstylist. She owned a beauty shop. And so I remember one day her posting and saying, you know, I am going through radiation right now. Everything in me hurts. Oh, as a dog. She said, everything in my body hurts. But today, I just want to say I'm grateful that God has, that I have my hair. That I have my hair, my crowning glory. That God has seen it fit that I continue to have my hair. And then in addition, even if I lose my hair, that I'm a stylist and I can make my own wig. And, you know, when you see someone like that who can find something to be grateful for amidst so many things going on in their life, probably the worst time of their life, because I know she would talk about how her whole skin is burning, her whole body is burning at the end due to the radiation treatments, how she couldn't swallow anything without pain, how she had sores all on her neck, like all these things. And she would still come live and give hope to people. So on this Thankful Thursday, I just want to be transparent as well and say that you know, as human beings, I'm a human being. Oh gosh, what happened to the camera? One second, guys. Whew. Thank you, Bev. I know, it's crazy. I didn't even know her personally. It's just the way you meet people on Facebook and you chat with them. And I knew that she needed to be on my show. And so anyone, I'm going to put it out there and just be transparent as well, that God calls us for a higher purpose, has called each and every one of us for a higher purpose. If God is telling you in this season to be hope for a certain condition, to inspire people, to bless people, to empathize with people, do it. Because I know she didn't have to. She didn't have to take the time to talk to people on social media and give them hope. But she somehow was a light in my life, even though I didn't know her, right? And so I'm just grateful for her this morning on this Thankful Thursday, that she crossed my path, and that in my mind and even on the Hope Hub, I'll honor her as a beacon of hope, even though she never made it to the show, that she was a beacon of hope to others. And I know many of you are. And so I'll say, you know, instead of limiting myself, and I think this is what I'm getting out of this today, is that I shouldn't limit God, right? When God tells you to do something, he's just telling you, show up and do it. It's not up to you to figure out the how or when. Just show up and do it. And that's what I'm going to continue to do here, is that I'm not going to worry about rejection or who's going to be on. That's their decision. Mine is just to be a vehicle for people to tell their story. So what was my message for Thursday? I'm sorry guys, there's so many people, so many grass cutters here. This is where I am. It's beautiful, isn't it? And it's hot. It's like 88 degrees on the boardwalk here in Virginia Beach. So yeah, so that being said, what's my message to you today is like Rashonda, instead of looking at what is missing from your life, look at what you have, because we all have a tendency to see what's missing. You know, when especially around loss, when you lose a loved one, you know, you're looking around the table and you're thinking, I wish my mom was here, I wish my dad was here, I wish my son, my daughter was here. And you're living in that feeling of loss and loss and loss. And that's how I feel today about Rashonda. But instead of that, what I'm gonna focus on is who she was and what she gave to the world and the lessons that I can take from her life and how she has encouraged me in times when I thought that I didn't have anything. She was there and she encouraged me. And she was a light, a beacon of hope. So with the same with you guys, whatever you see as missing in your life, stop looking at that and instead look at what is actually evidence and manifest in your life. And when you focus on what it is that you have and the abundance that you have in your life, because everything that you have is probably something that you prayed for. You know, like we have a tendency, sometimes I'll be, you know, shouting at my kids and telling them, be quiet. And then I have to remind myself, the same child that I'm telling to stop making noises is the same child that was nonverbal, that was completely nonverbal, and I prayed for God to open up their mouth for him to be able to speak. And he's speaking, and here I am yelling at him because he's saying he's tired or he's whining or whatever. And there was a time when I was wishing he would be able to express himself and say what it is that he needs. I remember the other day walking here on the boardwalk, we got to the end, my son was giving me such a hard time, and I was so mad at him because whenever we get to the boardwalk, he'll complain about walking, like he doesn't want to walk. And so already we're walking and we're loving it and everything, and it's a magnificent view, and meanwhile I'm sitting there looking at this gorgeous view and I'm almost in tears because of how he's upsetting me and he's not understanding that he's ruining the moment for me, you know. And so you know, I have to remind myself that I have to be grateful that even with everything that's going on, everything that he's acting, there was a time that I was praying for him to be able to whine and for him to be able to say, I hate you, or anything, to say anything, because at that time he wasn't even saying mom. He couldn't even say mom. He didn't even understand his name. You'd call his name, he wouldn't turn. And here I am complaining. What do I have to complain about? So I'm just letting y'all know, look at what it is you have instead of what you don't have. Be grateful for what God has given you. Everything that you have, most of the things you have, you probably one time cried over and prayed over. That job that you had, that food on the table, the little things, the family, your kids, your husband, who you're now complaining about. You probably prayed over a husband at one time, right? So all of us have so much to be grateful for. As I walk here on the boardwalk, one of the things that I'm noticing is every so often on a bench, there's a homeless person laying on the bench, sleep on the bench, and it's like 80 degrees out here. They're just sleeping on the bench, fully clothed, probably dressed like it's winter because they're wearing all the clothes that they have in their body. And here I am knowing that I have a hotel room to go back to, right? It's like it's a juxtaposition, like it's people on benches, and meanwhile in these big buildings There are people who are paying $500 a night to spend a night in a hotel room. And then meanwhile, there are people here on the benches, broken people, just laying on the benches, asleep with nowhere to go. No food, no home, no nothing, homeless. I mean, it's such a... It's even hard to think about. Like, I was walking around and I'm like, there are people in these buildings where for them to write a check for $100,000 would be nothing. But I think God is reminding me in this season that it's nothing for him to turn your life around in an instant. That homeless person can go from the bench to the tower, to the, what is it called, that suite at the top of the building. God is so able. God is so able. So, did you guys, I'm gonna walk the boardwalk and walk and talk, but I wanted to tell you my story, because there's a story that I wrote on the Hope Hub yesterday, and that's why I went back to that church, Galilee, this morning to give thanks to God for answered prayer. So the day that I went to that church, I kept telling you guys, it's not like me to go into a strange church. Just see a church and something keeps telling me, go to the church. Y'all, here's a homeless person. I wish I had some money. I have no cash on me. So I remember walking to the church door and hoping that they were closed, because I was like, God, why are you making me feel like I need to go into the church? So I go to the church. I kneel down and I'm thinking, hi Candy and Ty Liz TLC, Mom, you changed your name, Candy. I like it. So I went to the church, and on the church altar was the Lord's Prayer, and I didn't know what I was supposed to pray, so I prayed the Lord's Prayer. Then I did my prayers. I wrote and at that time, when I did the video 2 days ago, I didn't tell you, but I was praying over my son and healing for him, because this has been an ongoing issue. He's going through therapy and different things for developmental delays and autism. So God had shown me previously that I would be victorious in this situation, and I kept feeling that there's a promise from God that at some point this child will be healed. And I have this idea in my mind, or this vision in my mind, of him speaking in front of his graduating class years from now, 10 years from now. So now I'm looking at him. He's about to turn, he's 8, he's about to turn 9. And so I was like, man, is this gonna happen? Like, now I'm feeling urgency, like 10 years for me to get this miracle. And it's almost like in my mind I'm putting a timer or a limiter around what can happen in 10 years, especially given that progress has been slow in coming. So anyway, so I was crying out to God and reminding him, Lord, remember, you promised, you know. So, you know, we do that sometimes to God like he doesn't know. And I was crying, went out, forgot about that prayer. Hi Shadrach, are you guys at breakfast? Just type. I'm on my way back. So anyway, I end up going, and I actually told my husband this story so he remembers it, because I don't want to forget it. I end up going to a gas station to get a Redbox to get some movies. And we get to the Redbox, the first gas station, there are no movies. So we're like, okay, we need to go to another one. So we go to this Redbox, and around the Redbox at this other gas station, there's this man, and he's wearing this huge shirt, like it was probably like 5 sizes too big, and he looked so tiny inside it, and he looked homeless. You know how you look at someone and you can see their shoes have holes in them, their pants have holes in them. The shirt wasn't his shirt. He just looks miserable. His hair is unkempt, it's uncombed. And then he walks to the trash can and he's like looking inside the trash can. So I'm like, oh my God, I hope he's not looking for food. While meanwhile, here I am with my kids talking about getting Redbox movies for $1.50 each. You know how like sometimes when you look at someone, you're like, the little things that you take for granted, like going to get a movie for $1.50, someone else is crouching in a trash can looking for food and has no dollar to even buy themselves anything. So I watched him go from trash can to trash can to trash can, just looking, very embarrassed. And so I was like, man, I think I have 20 in my pocket. Let me go to him and just greet him with it. Like, not like, here you go, because he didn't ask for anything. But so I went close to him and I took the money in my hand and I greeted him. I was like, hi. So he looks at his hand and he's looking at the money, and I'm like, look. And I tried to whisper, and I'm like, look, I saw you looking in the trash cans, and I don't know whether you are looking for food, but I don't want to be judgmental and assume, but just in case you need this money, I want you to have it. And so he was hesitant. It was funny. He was like almost hesitant. It's like he wanted to give me back the money. And so I'm like, and so I said, did I assume wrong? I'm sorry if I assumed wrong. So he said, actually, I was digging for cigarettes. So I was looking for cigarettes. So in my mind, you know how you want to go into, oh my God, here's another druggie. Someone who's looking for cigarette butts in order to puff the cigarettes. And so I said, look, if it's that important to you that you're digging in a trash can, keep the money. You can go buy your cigarettes. And so he was like, oh, okay, thanks. So I go back to the Redbox to my kids, and in my mind I'm like, well, at least he was honest and he said what he was looking for. Then he comes back and he taps me on the shoulder, and I'm like, okay. So I turned back and he just said, look, I'm gonna say this. I felt embarrassed that you gave me that money, but I wanted to tell you that the addiction to the cigarettes was more, I guess, bigger than my need for food. But I was hungry, and I am hungry, and I do need food. And I wanted to let you know that this $20 that you've given me, I'm gonna go back and buy some food in the grocery store. So I was like, no. I'm like, you don't have to explain anything to me. It's fine. Just go ahead and it's your money. It's your money. He said, no. I wanted you to know that you did not assume wrong. I actually needed the money, and I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the money. So anyway, so I say, no problem, I get it. Then he asks me, what's your name? And you know how you're looking at a stranger and you're like, why are you asking me my name? So I said, Faith. And he said, he was like, Faith who? I was like, Faith Hope. Because I'm like, I'm not giving you my first and last name, so I'm gonna give you my first given name and then the one God gave me, Hope. So I was like, Faith Hope. And he was like, did you say Faith Hope? So he was jolted, and I was like, why are you surprised? And he said, well, it's interesting because, and then he was like, first of all, my name is Jason, and my name means healer. And then he said, and so I was like, what? Did you say healer? He said, yeah, it means healer. My parents named me that to remind them. I guess it was something like a reminder, because there were a lot of sickly people in their family. Like he said, his brother, a twin, ended up dying of leukemia. He told me about other relatives that had died of different diagnoses. So he said, yeah, so my parents named me healer, because to remind themselves that God is healer. And I was like, oh my God, like I almost like sat down, because that morning I was asking God, or reminding him that he is healer. Basically, that's what I was doing in the church that morning. And so he told me, he was like, yes, I've lived a really hard life, And right now, I've been going through a very challenging time. And I told him, yeah, that's what life is. It's like it has its ups and its downs. But you always come up, you go down. And he said, look, I don't see how I'm going to end up coming up from where I am after all that has happened to me. It seems like I've been in the down for so long. And so I was like, look, I believe that God can turn things around for you. And so this was the conversation that I was having with Jason the healer. And so he started telling me about prayer and how he's been trying to pray. He doesn't feel like God is hearing his prayer. Like he doesn't know how to communicate. He's prayed and prayed and he's prayed out. He doesn't have the words anymore. And I was like, Jason, this morning I went to church. Never been to this church. And I was wondering, why did you bring me, Lord, into this church? And God illuminated to me over the sanctuary the Lord's Prayer. And I want you to remember the Lord's Prayer, because maybe that's why I'm meeting you today, is for me to remind you that it's not complex. It's very simple what you have to pray to God. And so I narrated the Lord's Prayer to him like he didn't know it. And so I was like, wait, did you even know the Lord's Prayer? Give Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. So I'm telling him all this. So he's like, yeah. He's like, yes, I know the Lord's Prayer. So I said, well, apparently God wants to remind you today that all you have to do is pray that simple prayer over whatever it is that you're going through. When you don't have the words to pray, that's the prayer that God wants to remind you. And I told him, look, I'm thankful that God brought you on my path to remind me that he is healer, because that's what I needed to be reminded of. What are the chances that I would run into a stranger at a convenience store and something prompts me to give you money that you didn't even ask for, right? You're even hesitant to take it. And then for you to come up to me and introduce yourself to me as healer, and then remind me that the reason you have that name is to remind you and to remind others that God is healer. I was like, by the way, I told him, flesh and blood has not revealed that to you. That's what I told him. I was like, flesh and blood did not reveal that to you. That was spirit. And the same with me. For me to go through to that church this morning and be prompted to go in, get that message specifically for you in terms of your request and what you're asking God for, that's why that happened. Then the part that was like the thing that stunned me the most, if you read that post that I put up, because I had to write it. You know how something happens to you and they're called God happenings, like the book I was reading on Monday, is that sometimes you forget when God happens. And I wanted to remember it. And so when I got done with the conversation, I went to the car and I told my husband the whole conversation. And I was like, listen, I need you to remember this for me. And I need to remember it for myself, because this was not a coincidence. This was a God incident, because there's no way. Because the other thing this guy told me, Jason, was that he said last week he found a book. We went him to homeless on the street. He said he found a book like outside a thrift store. And he took this book and he's been reading it. And he just started reading it last night. And then he tells me, this is like out of nothing. Like, this conversation was the craziest conversation, because we were going from very deep things about our lives. I'm telling him about my story, how I lost hope, how I found hope in God. And then he is telling me about his sister who is taking care of him, how they have nothing. He's telling me about his twin brother who passed away, and how now, because of a seizure, he doesn't even have a lot of memories around his twin brother and that relationship, and how he mourns, you know, the fact that he can't remember his brother, and how he feels that he's lost so much in his life. So he just sees loss in his life. So he told me the name of the book, and that's when I almost fell over. because the name of the book he found and he said was A Christian's Hope, Your Anchor for the Soul. Basically, hope, your anchor for the soul. I had not mentioned to him anything about hope and an anchor. And you guys know I talk about the anchor all the time. I have an anchor over my desktop. Like, it's always like the symbols for me, for the Hope Hub, the symbols for me in life and in this season have been a lighthouse, right? I'm always talking about be a beacon of hope, like a lighthouse, right? And how even when the waves are strong and the seas are in the oceans, and I'm always talking about that, right? And I keep saying God is your anchor. Hope is your anchor. And that beacon of hope, if you look up, you will see it and you can swim towards it. And really, Jesus Christ is the anchor, is the beacon of hope, the largest beacon of hope, or that light. But us ourselves, we also need to be that light in the world. So this man tells me that's the book he's reading, y'all. This is not like, there were so many things in this story. So he tells me that's the book he's reading. And I'm like, why did you pick that book up? And so he's like, because I've been in a state of hopelessness where I just feel like I need to find God and I need to figure out how to find hope again. And I was like, do you think it's interesting that God puts you in my path? And I have a platform online, and all I do every day is talk to people about having hope. Is try to give people hope every day. I don't even know what I'm doing half the time, but I know that's what I'm called to do. Is I'm told to show up on a daily basis, and whoever happens on my voice and listens will somehow get a glimmer of hope in what it is that I'm saying. I was like, it's not a coincidence, Jason. There's a reason we met, and the reason is, number one, God is reminding you that He's your provider, that He's your daily bread. I just happen to have $20 in my pocket. I never carry cash. I gave it to you. This is your bread for today. It's not $100 that it'll carry you for days, but God is your daily bread, period. And God will continue to provide for you. And I'm thankful that in this season, God is showing me that I don't have to be to solve people's problems. That's His job. All I'm supposed to do is show up and say a few words of hope and encouragement, and the rest is up to you, right? What you take from it is what you take from it. You know, I'm not coming here, like I say to you guys every day, I'm not coming here with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strategies for leadership. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tips for how to be a success. No. All I'm doing is I show up, and whatever Spirit leads me to say to you, I say it. And I'm like, someone will stumble on this video and get some illumination. So Jason was like an angel to me, because he reminded me that God has me here for a reason. And that book, A Christian's Hope, The Anchor for the Soul, look it up, y'all. If you look up that book, because then I went in and I Googled it, it defines, like seriously, like I always talked about, I was always wondering, should I be talking about psychological hope? Should I be talking about Christian hope? Because I run into people who are not Christians. Should I be talking about the Bible? I started reading Matthew 2 weeks ago, and I talked about the Beatitudes and the Sermon on the Mount. So I was talking through like the Bible on Wednesdays, right? Y'all remember? For those of you who watch me, guess what? When I went into that Bible, first chapter, what is hope, right? It defines hope in terms of expectation and a future hope. Second, and then it talks about the hope that we find in Christ. Then it talks about psychological hope. Then it talks about different things that I had questions about hope around. The crazy, I wouldn't even say crazy, I need to find another word for it. It talks about the Beatitudes, like a whole chapter, and the Sermon on the Mount. The last two topics that I spoke of are actually sub-chapters in this book. So I feel like there's just been a lot of things that have been happening in my life lately that are messing me up in terms of, I'm like, this is so strange, this is so coincidental. Why am I seeing all these things, right? Why are my eyes open more to see the spiritual in people and to see the spiritual in things? And I really believe it's because we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. Take that. That's a word. That's a word, y'all. We see things as we are, not as they are. So you can take this boardwalk, and depending on the thoughts that are in your mind, it's a beautiful summer day, right? But if all I'm thinking about is how hot it is and how I feel and how I'm about to faint, and my thoughts are around how the sun is just leaning on me, like, you know, the sun for real, it'd be leaning on your ass. I didn't say ass, did I? So it just be leaning on you. And if I'm thinking about that, then nothing will look positive in my line of sight, right? But if you choose to focus on what you have versus what you don't have, then God continues to increase those things that you have. Be thankful for what it is you have. And so I'm grateful that even when I met Jason, I wasn't as focused on solving his problems, because that's not my job. You know, sometimes you look at someone and maybe you have a conversation with them and they're homeless, and you're thinking, man, I need to work 2 shifts, 3 shifts and do such and such for him and change his life. My phone's about to die. But God has illuminated to me that that's not my job, that's his job. And he'll bring the right people across my path. He'll bring the words are powerful, they're a force to reckon with. And sometimes all that person needs is for you to empathize with them and say, look, pain is pain, hopelessness is hopelessness, depression is depression, and your depression may look like these circumstances you're in right now. My depression that led me to think of suicide may have looked completely different, but that pain is pain, right? And so I'm able to empathize with him in that situation because I've been there. I've walked those shoes of pain, right? And so wherever you are today, whoever comes across your path, especially those people who are broken, because there's so many broken people in this world, it's not your job to solve their problems, it's your job to empathize with them. You know, it's weird when people have physical limitations and disabilities. Nobody goes to them and says, look at my arm, you don't have an arm, but focus on my arm and you could have an arm like this, right? If someone is on a wheelchair, you don't go to them and say, focus on my feet and I'm walking, you can do this. But when someone is broken mentally, why do we go to them and tell them, be joyful? Like it's something that they can just click on. Look at me, I have joy, be joyful. No, it's a complete, I don't know why we do that. Your job is to see them, right? To empathize with them, to listen to them. You can offer hope or help where you can, right? But your job is not to make them feel less than because they're broken mentally. They're broken in their spirits. Only God can heal our spiritual brokenness. All right, I think I went on a rant this morning, or maybe I spoke too much. My phone's about to die, but I did have a hope lifeline for you today. Before I found out my friend Rashonda Jenkins had passed on and gone to be with the Lord. So maybe this was a message for someone. And the message was, around, first of all, your name. that God can give you a new name. Do not let your past define you. Do not call yourself your past, because a lot of us, we look at our past and we see what has happened and what has transpired, and we start calling ourselves those things. I'm a failure. I am always broke. I am abused. I am isolated. I am forgotten. But in this season, God is saying that He has a new name for you. And in the same way He can change your circumstances, He can change your name. Look, there's insects all over the place. He'll give you a new name, right? And so whatever it is that you're feeling that God has called you to be, step into it. Walk into it. Do not fear. He's giving you the strength and the ability that you need in order for you to bring those things to light. Just like He changed Abram's name to Abraham, father of many nations, even when Abraham and Sarai were barren, that their natural circumstances looked like they would never have children just because of physical limitations. God is saying that do not look at the physical and do not limit Him in whatever it is that you're trying to do. If you feel called to do something, if you feel spiritually that He's asking you to step into something, do not fear, because yours is to show up. He's gonna do the rest. I think that was my message for today. Otherwise, God bless y'all. Enjoy your summer. Virginia Beach is beautiful and we are enjoying it. And I'm going to take the time to appreciate the beauty of creation, the beauty of the ocean. And when I go back to work, I'll appreciate the fact that I have a job and that God is providing my daily bread. Oh, look at this. Daily bread. I found one. And look at what's on it. The lighthouse. That was at the Church of Galilee. Remember those little books that I was like, oh, is that a lighthouse? When you see a lighthouse, remember me, y'all. Anyway, you guys, I love y'all. You give me joy. You give me somewhere to, live out my passion, my purpose. I am so grateful for you guys and the Hope Hub. Share this space. Share my videos. Let people know about the Hope Hub in this positive space. I'm here every day on purpose. Here on purpose every day. Here on purpose every day. Hope. Do you see that acronym? Wink, wink. Bye.